Okay, again, here we are at realhistory.com, and this is Anatolia, Turkey, and the ancient history of it. And just wanted to show you that at the top because that's them, that's where you can find it at, and where they seem to want to claim all Caucasian civilizations. Yet, in this whole thing here, what he tried to say was that the Khoisan started humanity up in somehow in Anatolia area, and then they got pushed out somehow, and then he starts telling you truth again, and he just every once in a while keeps mentioning that one of them might have been black, and that black people were lollygagging all around over the place. This is again projected by black people who don't want to be considered sub-Saharan African primitives anymore, and now want to steal anybody else's history, and I do mean any, because this guy says that everywhere was all Negroids, and then white people popped up like popcorn as an albino Negroid, and they took over. And so we're all black people, it's just the white Negroes took over somehow or something. And they also profess they took their mind and things like that. It's that Whitey Cracker magic's incredible. Well, let's just get into this here, where it talks about this is a sacrifice to the Trojan captives. Now the disconnect here is that he says he doesn't know why they would be attacking themselves if the Etruscans were brethren from Anatolia, and then in the Iliad it tells you that they were actually used in the Trojan War. So why would they be killing their own brethren? Well, it says they're killing Trojan captives. It doesn't say they're killing Etruscans. But I guess that just bypasses his mentality. Also, there's a person here that's blue, got a bird head on him and a big hammer, which looks like that has something to do, I don't know, with a Hermes Odin god situation, and there are no blue gods. Oh, and there's also the palest person in the picture, an angel, and this angel has a blondish brown hair and rainbow colored wings instead of just white wings like we normally see. Oh, you can also see how pale this guy is, about the same color. But again, all of these Etruscan people, who he claims are totally a Caucasian, are exactly the same color as all the Egyptians. Some even lighter depictions in this are definitely seen more like this color in Egypt. And then of course the women are extremely pale. So maybe that's why she's drawn so pale, huh? Maybe that's a female. I don't see any hints of breast or anything, but yeah, the long thing, I don't know. Could be a lot of people believed in a lot of feminine angels versus male angels, like you read in the Bible and stuff, that it was the feminine bird that took you away and things off of Isis and all this type of situation, right? Yeah, kind of a mother type situation, but that all goes back to ancient burials where the birds took you up to heaven. And I believe he talks about that here shortly, and we'll get into it. But first, let's look at this. This is where it locked off last time. Another important kingdom of Anatolia was that of Urartu, and people believe that has to do with but then maybe it does, but in a stranger way. Maybe turned into Urartu because of the move, and maybe Abraham wasn't just one person. Anybody ever think of that? He also planted a sacred grove of trees there, and that goes with a lot of the Indo-European people that we've all been talking about. That Johnny Appleseed thing I won't shut up about, right? Okay, so let's continue. Urartu was a part of Anatolia, and it was considered a military power around 1000 BC, and a little before that. However, the Urartans were later displaced in the area in the 6th century BC by the Armenians. Now, not the modern Turkish Armenians, but these are the Aryan Armenians, who called themselves the Haik. And we hear about the Hyksos, and you wonder where they actually come from and so on. But then there is another concept where if you look it up in the Bible, they try to claim that Nimrod was killed by this and so on, but then you look up this Hike character, and it shows you that he was the one that was supposed to kill King Nimrod, and he's standing in that Orion position. So now we have that Orion-Aryan connection that I've talked about a few times. And may have been from the Indus Valley, they say the Hyksos may have been. More of them on them later. The Hurri were yet another people of Anatolia, the Hurrians, and their territory is also extended into eastern Anatolia. Later, these Hurrians, who originated from northern Elam, united into a nation called the Mitanni. And so now he's claiming that the Mitanni are actually people from the Zagros Mountains, and on the other side of the Tigris is part of the Sumerian clade. And I recently did a video about a new civilization that's been found there in city, and it seems like that city is also just Sumerian, but those people were pretty much the same thing, or even though they were called different, they were subjugated by them in a different land. And of course this carries from there towards the Indus Valley people, and we know how that got started and the Aryan involvement in that, but let's just continue. More of them later, he says. And so let's look at these statues here, and I don't know if you can quite make it out. It's a little small. Let me zoom in real quick. But so this is a chariot. Yeah, these people had domesticated animals and stuff long by now. And you can see the pale tan of these Mitanni. But if you look at a lot of their art, the males are drawn red ochre and the females are drawn in pale. In fact, a couple of the famous ones that black people don't like to use out of it are ones that show these darker skinned males but with red hair and blonde hair. Yeah, it's amazing. These long mullets in the back of their hair and so on like that. And of course, look at the beard on that man there. And this shows you that they're definitely Caucasians, for Negroids don't naturally, without admix, grow very much, if all, facial hair. Very few eyebrows and things like that either. And if you look at those guys, they're unibrowed like crazy. And this guy here with his D'Artagnan mustache and his long curly beard, it runs down, and holding his hands in the exact same position as Sumerian priest kings. This is a statuette of a prince with a gold breastplate, and so this shows you another connection to the exact same Sumerian things. And of course, if you go to the Louvre, or just look online at Louvre Narmer, it'll show you a person made out of white alabaster that's just like this, that had blue inset eyes, and that is Narmer himself, and it's a Sumerian priest king. Now his arms broke off because there's gaps in between there which aren't showing here, but you can still see the lump that's right here off of his belly. And also, he doesn't have that little chin beard at all, but he's got this huge beard like this. Let's continue as we see, a Phrygian type cap. This is pretty telling too, because this is ancient silver work and it's done quite well. So let's look into this a little more here. What do we got? Oh, we have the double eagle of the Armenians. Yeah, that Proto-Indo-European symbol that we keep talking about. Yeah. And the bird of death and the bird of rebirth. Yeah. And the phoenix idea. Yeah. And then what is this guy here? He's got swords and stuff. And he's on a horse. But the horse doesn't, it looks kind of mule-headed and stuff, but it's sure not a donkey. That's definitely a horse. And so this shows you the coming in of a Hyksos, perhaps, for they're the ones that brought the horse. Everybody else had donkeys to this time, right? Even Jesus rode in on a donkey, but then the second coming was going to be somebody on a white horse. Titus fulfilled that position, but people want to deny it today in a death cult that they think the world's going to come to an end somehow. So they notably say that this is some of the first horsemanship drawn in this area, and they didn't do this horse real well. He's extremely thick. And I go, yeah, he's extremely thick, but he's also drawn like a full war horse with a front cowling on him, a full set, a blanket set, and a back cowling that's on him. It's amazing. But also, that little horse they draw right there is a horse sitting down like a sphinx. And if you look, it looks a whole lot like a bird-headed horse, doesn't it? Does that look like a bird-headed horse? Yeah, it kind of does. This is from the Urartian Rhython found at Erebuni Fortress, meaning the Fortress of Blood, a fortified city of the ancient kingdom of Urartu, located in what is present-day Yerevan, Armenia. This is during the Achaemenid period. Yep. Long, nice beard, aquiline nose. Caucasians from the elder days. Oh, Book of Erebuni, an Urartu historical novel, 1968. And black people try to say, oh, well, see, there's a Negro, and it's like, wow, that was a sketch done by somebody else, but it doesn't really look Negroid. It looks like they tried to pull off the way that these statues looked, kind of, and maybe didn't do too good of an idea, and I don't know what that's all about, but that's the only thing that would look Negroid out of any of them, and that would look like a modern admix Negroid with Chinese eyes, so try to pull that one off. Oh, let's go to the Somal. Now the Somal people, they're like a Hittite type people, but then the Somal, a city-state that was there too, I wonder if that's where Somalia comes from. For the ancient definition of Caucasians show that it goes all the way through the Horn of Africa, and that's where Somalia is. Well, maybe that name somehow got twisted and kept, and then maybe it got named after that somehow. Just like Ethiopia, if you'll look up the definition of Ethiopia, it'll show you this area that all of the Greeks who made up the word and defined it, and it doesn't have anything to do with that little place that we call Ethiopia today, or the people that are admixed that are there today. It has to do with a bunch of places that seem to be river valley areas all over the place. Somal, he says, was a Hittite. No such people, perhaps Hattians, see below. No such thing as a Negroid out of Africa, see reality. An Armenian city located in Drikli Hoyuk. So it's with that grouping. in the anti-Taurus mountains of modern Turkey's Gaziantep province. Oh, and why did they name it the Taurus Mountains, and how does that all go with cattle and everything? Oh, it goes quite well with it. Let's continue. The site of Samal was originally occupied in the early Bronze Age and later became part of the kingdom of Yamad, or Aleppo, early in the second millennium. It was absorbed into the Hittite Empire during the middle of that millennium after the fall of the Hittites, which he keeps saying doesn't exist, but the world keeps saying, man, look at those Hittites. Black people don't want that to be a reality either, though for some reason. It was controlled by the Neo-Hittites, which apparently are double non-existent, until the arrival of the Armenians established the city as the center of the kingdom called Samal. With the rise of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, I wonder if they exist to black people, those Caucasian Assyrians. Samal became a vassal state and later a province of the Assyrian Empire. This extended or ended in the 7th century BC with the fall of the Assyrian Empire, and then we have the Persians coming in, Cyrus the Great, and all those things that come after, blah, blah, blah. So here we're looking at this incredible Caucasian. Now up here it's been rubbed off the top of it, but there are some symbols like the crescent and a moon and a star, and it looks like a hammer. So here we have a crescent and a hammer that's going on, and then this conspicuously looks like Phoenician. Yeah, that's Phoenician. See those G's and A's, and yep, that A there and Aleph and the ancient M. Yeah, this is Proto-Canaanite. This is Phoenician dialect here. And he's also holding a pine cone. You can see that, right? And then this, oh, he looks like Richard Dreyfuss, for God's sakes, right? Oh, interesting thing about this was found recently in one of the digs that were found there, like in 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. And people have said, well, that's a duck, right? And that's a bunch of bananas. You see that? That's a bunch of bananas. Now, other people have said that's just a bowl sitting in a bowl sitting in a bowl with something sitting in it or something. And they're like, okay, because it couldn't be a banana, right? Just want to throw that in there. That those couldn't be 3 bananas. Okay, let's go. What is this? Anatolia, now Turkey, mortuary stele of Kutamwa, the official king of Panamua the second. Oh, Panama. And Samal. This stele dated from 735 BC was discovered in Nabonidus expedition in 2008. Okay, there you go. Oh, now look at these Caucasian people here. Very telling. King Barakib of Samal, modern Syrianically, sitting in his throne. Before him stands his scribe. The Aramaic inscription next to the king's head reads, I am Barakib, son of Panamua. The inscription by the moon disk up top reads, my lord Baal of Haran. So now we can see the ancient god of Haran and what actually went on in old time, and that Baal and Bealiah means Baal is Yahweh, and Isaiah means, yeah. I keep going over this over and over again, but it's all the same type thing, and even though they took the sign off the front of it, it's the same food. Chili's is Chili's. Now let's continue, and oh, here's that other sacred branch. And he looks like he's supposed to be holding something, but he's not, but you can definitely tell how Caucasian these are. And you can see that symbology that goes through the whole area, and it has to do with Caucasians. Bullhorns, crescent, moon, everything, blah, 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 right? Totally, right? Baal of Haran. And if we look closer, we can see things like a horned helmet that are the gods that he's professing to, a handle with a scroll thing on top of it that basically looks like the handbag holder, a star inside of a circle, and so well made right here. It almost looks like it's sitting on some Soviet airplane decal I used to do whenever I was a kid, and yet here we have a double eye situation in a circle, and then here we have that winged sun disk that's found through all of these Caucasian people from Egypt all the way through Zoroastrianism, all the way up here in Anatolia, in the Sumerians, and those Proto-Indo-Europeans all the way up through the area. Isn't that amazing how that all just goes together? Yeah, amazing. And that also is Canaanite, or what we call Phoenician dialect. There's the G's, the Alephs. Man, this is just worn down. I need to get the inscriptions on this. This would be nice to just read over, even though it's just kind of BS. It's concerning his royal deeds, 720 BC. Now we see again someone else, and we're seeing that crescent that's up here, a procession, and so going on. Let's look what this has to do with anything. Oh, this is before I even get to the bottom, I know who it is. This is S.R. Haddon. Yeah, this is the King S.R. Haddon. And what I always thought was neat was about that was I learned all about that. And then whenever Carl Sagan, he seemed to know a little bit more than he was able to tell the public. You can kind of tell that, and you can tell that he kind of goes off on it a little bit, but you know, due to his heritage, he can't really just be destructive. But at the same time, whenever he made that movie Contact, anybody ever seen that? You know, Jodie Foster and everything, and it's got all right, all right, all right, and it's got whatever his freaking name is. Anyhow, it's his movie that showed you ancient alien contact and then how they got together. And if you'll remember, the guy that funded the whole project got cancer and went up into space to try to make him live longer if it could, was this incredible and rich guy that would have been like Bill Gates at the time, and the only guy that could have pulled it off and helped to do it was S.R. Haddon. That was his name, S.R. Haddon, in Haddon Industries. You remember that? And he come floating up to the camera and he goes, "Want to take a ride?" And that was whenever she got to take her chance because they were trying to take it away from her. And you remember that? And then the weird albino guy that was a church freak and Vega and all that stuff. Anyhow, guys, S.R. Haddon. So it's funny how things like this just keep slapping you in the face like a fish. Hey, I ought to interject Monty Python in the fish slapping thing right now, but I won't. This is an amazing stele. This shows you something odd because this is his victory over the Egyptians, taking it back. Okay? And in the fact of doing so, it shows you him with this little noose right here holding down and holding on to apparently what would have been the Egyptians then, right? And if you look at the Egyptians, they draw them as Sumerians. Yeah, it seems like they do. And they've got this upper and lower guy, or two of them here. One's on his knees, one's up. But one thing for sure, this is Anatolia, now Turkey, a stele of S.R. Haddon, king of Assyria, which was found at Zenkrili. In its inscription in cuneiform, it commemorates the Assyrian conquest of Egypt in 671 BC. Conquest of Egypt. That doesn't look like what we call Egypt. That's interesting. Perhaps other people draw certain people certain ways, but they're all Caucasians. Isn't that funny? Oh wow. Oh, that's Phoenician, and that's real clear. This is that's in good shape, even though it's cracked somewhat. There, yeah. So here we see again the guy with the big mullet and the Caucasian-looking face. Here with the horned helmet he's talking about. Here we again have the measuring device with the cylinder seal type thing that looks like the bag's missing now off the bottom of it. Right? He's holding a wilted lotus. And we look up here, and here's that sun disk that goes everywhere through all of these people again. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with black people at all. They want some of it to somehow, but why don't they just take their own heritage? Well, they don't like that. It shows that they're primitives and they weren't part of the Bible or Egypt or anything. Well, they weren't. So there's reality, and we need to go with it. And the jealousy thing about not having done anything has really gotten pathetic. Let's continue. Gorgon. Oh, does this have to do with Kurgans too? Anatolia, now Turkey, in the 8th century BC, Gorgon was the capital of prosperous Neo-Hittite kingdom in the southern Anatolia, and it was also a center of production of stelae, strongly marked the Hittite tradition, which he tries to mark out and say it doesn't exist. Funny that, especially in their use of hieroglyphs. And oh man, they got hieroglyphs. And what is the symbolism? And why would they have a falcon Horus on the thing that looks exactly like everybody knows? And then okay, but he's Sumerian looking here. Look, and the lady, so it's a lady got this kid on his lap, and he's holding up this eagle. Is that a girl? Well, it's a good question there. That's a woman, though. You can tell from the cowling here. So what's it say? Anatolia, now Turkey, in the 8th century BC, Gorgon was the capital of prosperous Neo-Hittite kingdom. Didn't mark it through there. In southern Anatolia, it was also the center of production for stelae marked by Hittite tradition. Oh, so he just copied that and acted like he wrote it. Especially in our use of hieroglyphs, the stele shows the young Tarinapus standing on his mother's knees while he holds him by the legs. On the field is a writing tablet. In his hands he holds a stylus and a leash attached to a hawk, signs that he belongs to a wealthy class. Signs that that's, again, an Isis form and an Egyptian thing that we want to relegate just to them. But if you see it in all these other cultures, blended all the way through as a constant, it's not like, oh, they're mocking the Egyptians. This is something that's carried through everybody. And that bird effigy and the bird angels and all that concept that everybody had back then, And here we have him fanning this goddess here that's sitting on her thing, Gorgum Funerary Stele. That doesn't look like a Negroid in any way, shape, or form. Thank you very much. Look at those guys with those long mullets in the back. Yeah. So now we get here. Oh, so this is neat. This is that same concept where in the earliest dynasties of Egypt, you'll see Nofret and Renifer, and they're sitting in a love seat kind of position side by side a lot. You see it happening here, and in some of the Egyptian inscriptions, it'll even show you the whole family and things like that hooked up together. And if you look, it's really just a love seat, but they carved them into it. You can see how that just bends back, and you could even sit on their laps right now. And here he is holding again that grapish palm tree pomegranate situation, right? Yep, so this is the female, that's the male, right? Yeah. Look at the thick eyebrows. Yeah, these are Caucasians, the thinnest nose, the thinnest lips, but he wants to claim Negroid somehow and all of this stuff. It's gotten disgusting whenever it's really none of this stuff, not in any way, shape, or form. And then let's go with this idea. He says it's Khoisan. Okay, well, Khoisan are related to West Africans, so now you're still a primitive that didn't do nothing, and you watched your people near you go out and run and do a bunch of stuff that you never did, that never even happened, and that's a lie too. So isn't that disgusting? Let's continue. Gorgum Stele, 800 BC. Oh, you see this cross-hatch X table, right? The canvas topped, like camping chairs. Everything we have nowadays. Didn't I show you one of these recently that dates about 9,000 BC? Yeah, and where does that come from? Yeah, those Proto-Indo-Europeans and stuff, you betcha. Okay, so, oh man, you could go with some more stuff on this. Hey, is he holding a pair of nunchucks? Look, they're held together. No, that's not what that is. Let's go. Oh, the Neri. During the Bronze Age collapse in the 13th to 12th centuries BC, the Neri tribes were considered a force strong enough to contend with both Assyria and the Hatti. The Battle of Nehariya, and the culminating point of hostilities between the Hittites and Assyrians for control of the remnants of the former empire of the Matadi, took place there. Circa 1320, Nera was incorporated into Urartu during the 10th century BC. So a local fight that's there, and because these people kind of owned Egypt right then, it looks like now somebody was sent and brought them gifts. But if you look at these guys here that are bringing them, and these guys are here, what is this? Assyrian relief. The men with praying hands on the left may be the Nari. So these guys right here may be the Nari. Okay, well, if you look, those are Caucasians, all right? So what are these over here? Oh, those Assyrian-looking Caucasians. In fact, that looks a lot like one there, and if he's just helping to carry these guys in under their control, it might be. Here's one of their big priests, woolen-looking thing. Yeah, that's it. Even though part of his head's gone here, we can tell that's a Caucasian, definitely. And then what's the concept here? Oh, so look at them. They're all wearing, even these guys, they're all wearing these lace-up boots. Look like giant moccasins. You see this? All lace-up boots. And you look over here, and they've got the same crap in these lace-up boots and stuff. And then you look at these people, and they're barefoot. They don't even have sandals. Yeah, okay. So then what's this right here? Oh, it's somebody fanning somebody, and they blew up the picture. Oh, he's got a big nose. Vinnie Barbarino does too. That's not a Negro. Please stop. Let's continue. Oh, over here we've got a man carrying a lamb. And of course all the lambs and all of the rams and all of the cattle all came from Sumerian Anatolia, and all the grains too. And we know all of that for Egypt and for everybody. And we still use it today. Oh, I just did one on the Sphinx. But here's another picture here. In Anatolia, 800 BC. A winged sphinx that looks like it's caught to that Sumerian idea, and you can see the Sumerian head and the bull effigy that's on here, but this thing's tail actually does have the snake on it, whereas in the versions you see over in Sumer are basically bound and wrapped up, like the cow's cared for quite well, but not a snake tail. So it can show you some blend that goes on there, but how that all hooked up together, and again had nothing to do with anybody other than Caucasians. Here's a musical procession of Caucasians playing a bunch of lyres and things that make beautiful sounds. And there, of course, the Phrygians and all these guys we talked about made the scales. The scales of music that you choose and the octave and so on are Phrygian, Lydian, Locrian. All of these Caucasian people all had names for each one of their slight different scales that make slightly different sounding music. And they still use them today in orchestral music. Rap people probably don't know what I'm talking about. Carchemish, King Araras. Oh, Arians, leading his son Canamas and other unnamed son. His other unnamed son is YT Cracker. And so here we can see another effigy of that. Everybody's exactly in the same pose, and he's got a spear, and he don't have nothing. And he's got a spear, but it broke up. But it looks like a lot of that might have been done when the whole thing cracked. But in that same effigy, this guy's must have gotten broken when they were trying to sculpt it on, because it's like a thin piece of broom on there to where they just took it all the way off. Sometimes they'll do that and they'll cut it off there and make it look like he's got a little torch going on and things, but here it just shows nothing. So he's just standing there like, I lost my spear, but in my left hand I have sticks. That's how that works. Eurasian invasion, the Hittites. Conventional history states that about 2000 to 1500 BC, the Hittites, supposedly the first Caucasian tribes of the Eurasian plains to enter the Middle East, had established themselves in central Anatolia. No, it was always Caucasian since the time that we were Ugg. Yeah, and all of North Africa, all of Egypt, and everywhere in the known world up through Eurasia, from Russia to China, all the way down into the top of India, through Yemen, all the way back across, all the way around the whole Mediterranean without a single break at all, and no Negroids anywhere in sight. They're all down sub-Saharan. There's a few different groups down there, and they're not even related to each other, including pygmies and so on. But let's continue. Note, the term Hittites is taken from the King James Bible, first published in 1611. No, it's not. It goes back to like Greek Septuagint and stuff. Man, these guys just want to lie. Which is a translation of a translation, etc., of the first Bible, the Greek Septuagint. Oh, so he is telling the truth. But then he tried. So why is the first statement there if the reality is the second? Somehow this works in his logic. Plus the new Greek New Testament. The Hebrew words in question translate as children of Heth, or children of the serpent. But this is a Canaanite group in the Bible. How do these people magically get transposed in the history of Anatolia? Well, Canaanites was Canaan, and the ancient Phoenicians called themselves Canaan. And if you were part of the Bible, you might know this type of stuff or learn it. Although a lot of Bible people are just led to think one thing, think one thing, think one thing. And remember, a woman grew from a rib and ate from a magic tree because a talking snake told her to. Well, let's continue. How do these people magically get transposed? Why would they be transposed in any way? There are no Negroids around. Everyone knows that, including the Negroids. Thank you. Caucasian myth-making. Oh, what about Negro myth-making now? Oh. During the late 1800s, archaeologists discovered artifacts in Anatolia that were such poor artistic quality that it was assumed that they could not be possibly made by the native Anatolians, which seemed to have better artwork. Ever on the lookout for opportunities to inject a Caucasian presence into a history that there was none. Let me change that. Always trying to look for an opportunity to say, well, if the art's different, then it must be Negroes somehow. That if you can't tell me what it is, it was Negroes, it was magic Negroes. No, it wasn't. It's gotten past disgusting. Please stop. Ever on the lookout for opportunities to interject Negroid presences into history where there was none whatsoever, they comb the occurrence of the Koltepe tablets and supposed Indo-European personal names, and here we now definitely have the Proto-Indo-European connection, in correspondence with Assyrian merchants and local rulers in central Anatolia, the Hatti. Aha, so they had the Proto-Indo-European influx there also. So where is it now that we seem to see some Proto-Indo-European influx? Everywhere. Let's continue with what assumed to be ancient Caucasian artifacts, and now we know that it's ancient Caucasian artifacts and there were no Negroids there. They then identified with them those of the King James Bible, the Hittites. Now the connection was made, which is a mystery, but it is assumed that since these biblical Hittites were an obscure people, no one would know the difference. Yeah, but now we're knowing the difference, and we're finding out the reality of the Bible and everything that goes with it, and that it came from ancient Sumeria and everything to go along with it, and that it doesn't encompass one of these little people that try to point out, but supposedly these 12 tribes, and when you look at it and what they describe as being the 12 tribes, it's basically all the ancient Proto-Caucasians and Caucasians that made it all up from there. And isn't that an amazing fact? And these don't even look as bad as some of the ancient Sumerian stuff where the guys have these gorked out faces and almost a pig nose and crap like that on them. But if you look at the statues of the Canaanites and stuff, and when they did their face masks, yeah, it's just not the best thing in the world, you know, so whatever. But then again, it is the best art of its time. Those Caucasians, they're just amazing. In fact, they still do amazing art. They've been the artists of the world that make beautiful art. We're also able to fly now, and I don't know if you know or not, but we go to space and back zoom too. The Hittites were supposedly a great empire and civilization, but yet there's precious little archaeological evidence of their existence. Even that meager bit seems bogus, so he tries to discount everything that he's been showing for the last 2 hours. Further to debunk the Hittite myth, there are several tablets found at Bagazoy, Turkey. Some of these can be dated earlier than the 17th century BC. One of these tablets concerns two semi-legendary kings of Kusara. They are named Pithakanus and his son Anytus. The city called Kusara has yet to be found, but the tablet text gives us an impression that the cities that the king Pythias had conquered, and among them appears to be the name Nessa, which his son Anytus subsequently adopted as his capital. Also included in the list as the city is the Hattusis. So there they are, but they don't exist. Remember, Negro? This is known to be the ancient name of the supposed later Hittite capital of Bagazoy, which Anytus is said to have destroyed. But why are you saying it and then not saying it, and then saying it doesn't exist and then showing evidence for it? It's kind of pathetic. The fact that no direct connection could be found between these two kings in the history of the Hittites has been explained later archaeology discoveries. These new discoveries demonstrated that Pithecanus and Anytus were in fact native Anatolian, Hattian rulers of the 18th century BC, not Hittites, which are the exact same thing, Negro, and you're not getting out of it. Indeed, a dagger bearing the name of Anytus has also been found at Kultepe, and it verified it. Historically, but he tries to deny it in the sentence proving it. Twice he's done that right here, and then if we just look at what I read before and how he tries to discount it, then he's telling you these people exist over and over again. Historically, after settling in Anatolia, the Hittites are supposedly to have pursued wars and expansion, created a great empire, but this Europeanized history, why would it be Europeanized way back when? At least it's not a Negroicized history and a lie. Just never seemed credible. How could it be that the Hittites, with an empire so vast that it supposedly covered all of Anatolia and parts of Canaan, which is far to the south? No, it's not. It actually reaches right up against it, as we just proved, and he said himself, and an army so powerful that it could stand toe-to-toe with the mighty Egyptian army and fight it to a standstill at the Battle of Kadesh. That's weird. So he said they didn't exist, but they were the army at the Battle of Kadesh, and we all know that's true. It's what I was fixing to say. It's like, well then, so I guess it was all a big myth that they ran into anything when they went north? Yeah, and if you'll look at that king right there in Senusret III, it'll actually show you that he put a stele up down in Nubia that says no Negro is allowed into Egypt ever again past Heh, that if they want to come and give their homage to the gods, they can do so, but they'll never come into Egypt or through it, and it says forever. Simna stele of Senusret the second? Third. Anyhow, how could it be that this great empire could be totally and utterly destroyed by the sea people in 1193, the very same sea people who were stopped dead in their tracks at Egypt's border? Well, that's an easy one, because they were already taxed to death after fighting all the other people before they turned down towards Egypt, and that they didn't seem to really want to drive into Egypt, but to take the area next to it, just like it says, and that it was all a problem about Egypt trying to steal the ancient sacred cedar forest that was up there, and the cedar trees and oak trees were up there, and use them because they had run themselves out of trees and they were fixing to turn into Dust Bowl, Oklahoma. Right? Because Johnny Appleseed couldn't do his work anymore because it was turning into a desert. And the only thing left that had that connotation to it anymore was pretty much palm trees and the rare yew tree, which all connects to European concepts. Let's continue. Then there's supposed willingness or snobbish Egyptian pharaohs to conclude dynastic marriages that would have undoubtedly have been illiterate barbarian newcomers that wouldn't happen. No, when they do the Amarna thing and everything, those people were quite advanced. They called themselves brothers to the Egyptians, and I don't want a Negro trying to say, because the Negro was the illiterate, barbaric people that really weren't going to be allowed to be part of anything, and nobody wanted to mulatto themselves at that point, for that would have just been a destruction of everything that was trying to be going on. In fact, the Bible talks about how that ruined everything, where the sons of gods got with other people, and in doing so, it entitled those other people, it felt, and then things all fell apart. So God smote the world and said, don't do it again. And here we are again in a modern day going, duh. And then black people don't want to be with their own kind anymore, and they want to try to mulatto themselves out of existence because they don't like themselves. Let's continue. Because of the insurmountable problems associated with trying to prove the existence of this mythical Hittite empire that he proved himself and is far well more known, and there's so much more correspondence about it than any sub-Saharan African civilization, it'd blow your mind. Many researchers have to come to the conclusion that there never really was a Caucasian empire in Anatolia at all. The Negro lies. Just wishful thinking on the part of some. Yes, and this is just wishful thinking on the part of Negroes who didn't know any of it existed, but they definitely covet and lie, bear false witness, and want to steal. They speculate that the so-called Hittite Empire is really a confusion of that of the Hattians. Yeah, okay, Hattians, Hittites, Sumer, whatever, yip, 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 non-Negro. That's it, just like the Bible. Phrygians, Chaldeans, Babylonians, or some other ancient empire. Yeah, those were all empires in that area, and that it's not a declamation of either one, but another separate point of it. Yeah, is there a problem with that? Yeah, there's a problem because it's not Negroes. Oh, okay. Giggle, giggle. Let's go. And this is why neither ancient Greek nor any other ancient historians ever mentioned it. Well, we just saw a bunch of mentions of it, and then I just told you about the historians that could run you circles. The problem is Caucasians write history in history books. That's funny. Caucasians made books. Caucasians made writing. Caucasians made books. Caucasians are the first people in the world that tried to figure out ancient history. No one else seemed to care at the time, and then have got caught in later than that. And there's a lot of people jealous of what apparently the Caucasians were involved with at that time, and even to this day. They're spacemen. So reference to the Hittites and bogus Hittite Empire abound throughout history as written by the Caucasians, and bogus lies by Negroes try to take them anywhere except for where they're actually from, and it's actually disgusting, as written by Caucasians, as spoken by a Caucasian now, and as proven by the Negroids, and they're hopping up and down wearing clown suits telling you they were part of the Bible and the white people weren't. According in this work, translations such as the Amarna letters, where the translator incorrectly substituted Hittite for the Egyptian word, which means Hittite, so there's a Greek word for things and stuff, just like, Libya is now Africa, and that's all named by the Greeks and all that, and the Nile used to be called the River Ar, but now it's called Nilus, or Nile, because of the ancient river god and Egyptus, and how that hooks up with those guys, and they were brothers, and all that stuff, and it shows you another non-confusion whatsoever. The Egyptians we have corrected it by using Haitian instead. Okay, so Hatti or Haiti, or Hatti, yeah. Does it have anything to do with Haiti? And the Negroids left it some weird, no, it has nothing to do with those guys that eat mud cookies now. No. They've pretty much deforested their whole island there, and it's just going to crap. And that has nothing to do with white people anymore. We spent billions trying to help them, and they chop down the rest of their trees and make it into charcoal and eat mud cookies. The Hittite were much more likely to be the involved people. That's the same people. Other areas are left uncorrected as so to avoid confusion. Well, the only confusion that's attempted is Negroids trying to usurp something that they didn't even know existed until recently, and the only reason they do is from Caucasian knowledge. Accordingly, in this work, translations such as the Amarna letters, where the translator incorrectly substituted. As to the Amarna letters, about 1/5 of these correspondences are from the Haitian royal family itself, and it describes so. The oldest letter is in Akkadian, is that of Tutankhamun's widow, Askhenathamun, to the Haitian king Supolima, proposing an alliance by marriage by the two kingdoms. Several of these letters are in the Ankara Museum of the Anatolian Civilization. Ooh, and we could look at those right now, but I'm gonna do that maybe in another video if it's got enough interesting things in it. We'll go do one over the Amarna letters. Maybe not even having to do with this guy's site, because all he's going to do is, and they were black. And what about them? Oh, they were black. And what? Oh, they were black. So Anyhow, but before that time, you have Ramsey's wife making correspondence back and forth with these people, telling you that they're brother and sister and all these type things, and shows you connections from ancient times. Yeah, and then we have the whole thing about Nefertiti and whether she was from there or not, for it said beauty came to us, and all these concepts that run along with that too. But one thing's for sure, she was definitely Caucasian too, but blacks have thrown this huge fit whenever they try to find out that it's not. It's gotten quite disgusting how they hop up and down, and it's really just a bunch of West African people that were from the Jewish slave masters, and now they want to claim anything except for their own heritage. It's gotten past disgusting and racist, and they're actually discrediting all these people that did all these things in ancient times. They don't give a damn because they didn't do anything, and they're just jealous. Once again, we have gotten ahead of ourselves, though, but sometimes it's necessary in order to maintain the logical flow of our presentation. In this case, it is because the Hittites are supposedly an important element in upcoming history, and it should be understood that their identification as the involved party is not accurate. So what he has attempted to do here is discredit the entire fact of this Hittite empire, and he's not able to do it. If you'll just go up to the very top right after we get through with this video and type in Hittite Empire, and you'll see it come back with thousands of things and all this knowledge about these people that the Negro wants to think doesn't exist. But he also wanted to say that Khoisan clique people are up here and they somehow formed the world, and it shows you how disgusting and how the lies really go. And again, one more point. Khoisan don't have anything to do with the West Africans that are trying to tout this, so it might as well have been me saying, well, the Japanese came in and did all this stuff, because they're just about as related. Like, share, and subscribe, guys, and enjoy. And we'll get on to more. Peace.